been a while since we had a fresh, full episode.
Yeah. Actually,
so...
we did post the cosplay bullying and cosplays not consent full episode.
Cool.
So that one seemed to have been very popular. I'm really glad.
Hooray! I'm sorry again for assaulting people's ears with that story. I've gotten a lot of comments about that one.
Comments were beautiful.
just to imagine what that was like to experience in my ear holes. Like, that was
I mean, I think
even
they did.
Worse. They did.
Anyways.
So hi. Yeah, welcome to the podcast. You can always hit us up. We're always looking for horror stories. Advice, if you're seeking advice. If you just want to chat, hit us up. We got an email account. It's cosplaystitchandseam@gmail.com.
Or you can fill out the contact form at cosplaystitchandseam.com on the contact page. Also, with today's episode, if there's anything that you hear us talking about, as we're going to be going over cosplay contests again, go ahead and be like, hey, I want to know more about such and such, or I want to know more about this kind of a contest, or so on and so forth. Let us know, and we will cater our episodes to fit your needs.
Like a couture thing for your ears.
Oh boy.
Specifically tailored to you. It makes sense!
You're adorable. Anyways, so yeah, today's topics are going to be on advice for entering and competing at cosplay contests, as well as the contest types.
Yay.
You sound very excited.
Yay!
Better!
I need to see the outline, because
sorry, I stole the outline from her.
We have a paper this time. Mercedes, or VFire rather, was very,
I was prepared for once.
Prepared!
Sort of.
There's so much fancy content this week.
Our advice for entering and competing in a cosplay contest. Let's start with advice for beginners. Okay. And this can go for just about anybody, too. I think the number one thing is to look and read what kind of contest you're getting into. Read through the rules, go through, what the requirements are, and kind of decide, is this the kind of contest I want to be entering?
Right on. I feel like we've repeated this a couple times, but it's because it's important. If you're entering a contest, know what it is, know what they want, so you know what you're bringing, sort of a thing. But also, one of my biggest advice to newbies is attitude. Your attitude will make such a difference in what you get out of the contest. If you go into a contest with an attitude of wanting to, be the best and win, everything and, just prove how good you are, if winning is everything, you may not have a good time at the contest, especially, if you're just starting out, you're not as likely to win. But having that attitude of going into it to learn, to make yourself better, to be your best self, is always going to be better. Making it to, learn, to make friends, to get to know other people who like the same things as you, and also go into it remembering that everybody in the contest has worked really hard to be there. It's not always about how much work goes in, it's about how nice the final product is. And for a beginner, that can be really hard because you feel like you're putting your heart and soul into something, and it doesn't always turn out the way you had it in mind in your head. Sometimes it looks lumpy, sometimes your stitches are wrinkly, sometimes, any number of things. But, I just say attitude is the most important to me. Have a good attitude about it. Yeah,
go in with a positive attitude for wanting to push your skills, to improve yourself, and to have fun. Mm-hmm. Winning's just a perk.
Yep.
You don't always have to win.
and that's one that can even go into, the higher ranking contests, if you're intermediate, masters, when we did World Cosplay Summit, as long as you feel like you put your best foot forward, as long as you've done all that you can do to make your performance and your costume the best they can be at your current level, that's really all you can hope to do. And you should be proud that you did that.
Yeah.
Whether or not you receive an award, you should be proud that you did that.
And you might surprise yourself or surprise someone else if you get out there and you realize, wow, there's still a lot more for me to learn. That's how I was when
every cosplay contest.
Every cosplay contest,
Everyone.
And especially the first time I entered in Masters, oh my gosh, I thought, I really threw this out of the ballpark. Look at all this work I put in here. I did a full leather armor, like, oh gosh, this is so amazing. And then I, got up there and was like, oh, yeah, I'm not winning. And that's okay, because, like, I learned a lot from the other masters and all that. So be willing to learn from your mistakes and understand that, you are not perfect. And that's okay. Yeah. No one has to be perfect. That's not why we enter contests. We don't enter because we're perfect. We enter because, we want to have fun, and we want to see how far we can push our skills. Yeah. And as long as you're doing that, you should be good.
Yeah. I see most beginners who didn't win in their contest come out of it with two attitudes. One, I never want to do this again. I'm humiliated. I hated it. Or I want to come back and try to do better. I've taken this as a challenge to myself to make something better next time. And one of those attitudes, I feel like, is gonna make you happier in the long run than, like, holding that kind of negativity. Like, maybe cosplay contests aren't for you, and maybe doing a contest is what helped you find that out. And that's okay.
Yep. Contests aren't everybody's cup of tea, and that is A-okay. Right. They are highly stressful.
They are. But yeah, having that kind of an attitude of self-improvement rather than pointing fingers at everyone else is to blame because you didn't get something is always going to be the healthier attitude for you.
Anything else for beginners? Always remember to bring a reference image. Like, if you have nothing else that you're bringing for, like, photo-wise, bring a reference image.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's hard, like, with the beginner one, because I feel like we went over it in pretty fair detail when we talked about cosplay contests overall.
Yes, in the previous episode.
That would be my suggestion to beginners, is, like, check out that episode, because there's just so much to tell you, and I just want to take you under my little wing and be like, let me tell you about cosplay contests and how to do your best. And there's always going to be a million more things I could tell you. But a lot of it's just learning by experience, too. Learning what works, what doesn't, what makes you happy, what doesn't. It's part of life and part of the learning process.
Yes, indeedy.
Thready or not.
So, thready or not, here I go.
You want to share an experience from when you were a beginner?
Oh, gosh. I've already shared the one where, Melissa told me that my markering was really awesome.
Aww.
She's sitting in a chair over there laughing.
It's okay, the first time I entered as a beginner, I didn't know what craftsmanship was, so...
Okay, same here. Alright, so my first time entering, I was entering as Ed from Cowboy Bebop. And, like, had a million Mountain Dews that day. It was great. I was off the walls. I'll say that my performance for that was amazing.
It would be.
I was very much in character for Ed. 3 Mountain Dews at once will do that to you. Mm-hmm. But as far as, like, craftsmanship and whatnot, I just remember my friend Jez, she was our Edward Elric in the group, because we were doing a crossover, Cowboy Bebop, Full Metal Alchemist crossover. She took me to craftsmanship judging with her so that I could see what it was. I just remember sitting there and being like, wow, this is really different. And also I can't focus because Mountain Dew. But also, like, it was very interesting, like, how different that was. And I was like, they're really serious about what they're talking about here. And, like Jez was, like, all into, like, making sure that she had documentation of everything that she had built. And I'd never seen anything like that before for, especially a hobby. Mm-hmm. I was like, this is just, like, a side thing that, she does. You know, because this was my first time at a convention as well. So I was like, this is very fascinating. And then I, tried it myself the very next year. Uh-huh. How about you?
Well, I will share 3 separate experiences, but they're short.
Okay.
So, because
you never have just one.
Well, the first time, they didn't tell me I was in craftsmanship judging, and they just said, tell me about your costume. And I was entering as a skit, so I didn't think anything of it.
Okay.
And that was the time I was doing Sora from Kingdom Hearts 2, which, as we know, was like a decade ago. Kingdom Hearts. Thanks. Anyway, Kingdom Hearts 2, which, you know, has like a lot of ridiculous patterning, dorky pants, piping, things like that. And I had made everything myself because I was like, that's just what you do in a costume contest. And I told them about it, and I ended up winning an award and had no idea why I'd won it.
Yep.
And the next time I entered the cosplay contest, because it still hadn't been, like, explained to me, I didn't get it. I entered a cosplay contest thinking, you know, you just enter, and I didn't realize that you had to, like, sign up 4 times to get craftsmanship judged and things like that. I didn't know that was, like, a thing. So I was like, oh, no, whatever, it's fine. I'll just walk on stage and walk off the stage, you know, and they can see how good my costume is from the stage. And it's fine from the
stage, right?
And I remember after that contest being, like, so salty because I was like, I worked so hard on this, and I did all this applique, and I did all this, like, traditional style of, like, making the clothing, and I made, like, these headpieces and did beadwork, and they didn't care, and they awarded all these other people, but I didn't even get an acknowledgement.
Pannon, you didn't go to the judges, though.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like, I didn't realize. Like, my anger was in ignorance, and once I found out, like, that's how cosplay contests worked, I was just kind of like, oh, I was being dumb. and so the year after, I entered, and I entered at a beginner level, you know, made sure that year that I had, like, documentation of our whole process. I had, like, done sculpting for it, and I actually, like, brought the molds I had used, like, I had sculpted molds and then done, like, a resin cast sort of a thing and popped out all these different things so they all matched. I had done, like, applique, I had done all these different techniques, and I had documentation of it. And they bumped us immediately to masters. Like, I did not spend any time in intermediate or beginner. Like, they just were like, no, you guys are in masters category. And I was just like, oh. So
you're like, whoa.
Yeah, so
moving up fast there.
I guess, but, like, it's an amazing difference what, like, knowing what you're doing makes. Like, not that I'm saying just because you have stuff well documented and you've worked really hard on it, you'll get bumped to masters, because it's a whole different ball field now, but it makes a big difference in how professionally you present yourself, you know? It shows the judges that you're taking things seriously, and it just puts a little feather in your cap and shows people that you're, you know.
And that's where, like, another bit of advice for beginners is that, like, find out how long you have with the judges and practice what you want to say to them before you go in. Yeah. And do not point out your flaws to them.
Please don't do that. Please don't do that.
The judges will usually see them on their own. What you want to do, because you're going to have a limited amount of time with them, you need to show them all the good things about your cosplay. Yes. Don't point out, oh yeah, and I messed this up.
Yeah, please don't. Please don't. Like, we will probably see it, but, like, just don't, like, tell us the good things. Tell us how hard you worked on something. Tell us a new technique you learned. Tell us, like, how many hours you poured into your embroidery, or, like, how long you sat and sanded so something was super smooth. Don't be like, well, it's lumpy over here. No, we can see it. I promise we can see it. Like, we want to tell us the good. Tell us this is your time to brag. Like, tell us how amazing you are.
Because you are amazing. Come on. But also be humble.
Well, yeah, I mean, humble brag.
Humble brag, yes. Speaking of which, like, that's advice for intermediate. So sometimes when you get up into that intermediate category, you're like, oh, I've been bumped up, I'm doing great. And this goes for masters as well, because each time you bump up, you get that real big boost of your ego. Yeah. Don't let it get too big. Mm-hmm. My way of countering that, because I know that I will sometimes get a tendency to be like, I am the best at this thing, and I am better than everyone. And I recognize that was an issue that I have with myself, and I am not actually better than everyone. So that's actually why I started the Cosplay Stitch and Seam. Melissa's just laughing at me.
Welcome to Cosplay Stitch and Seam, where we're not actually better than everyone.
Yes, we are not better than everyone.
I want that on a shirt.
Oh my
We're not actually better than everyone. Just so you know, we're really not.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, that's actually why I started the blog, was so that I could showcase others and keep myself humble, which worked. It worked really well.
I love it.
my deep dark secrets.
No, so like, I mean, it's sort of applicable because when you get bumped a category, for me it was a little bit different because I was like, master's category seemed far away, and getting bumped to 2 categories, I was like, this is the expectation that is on me from now on, is this same level. And I remember how many sleepless nights I poured into the costumes we did for that contest. And I was like, this is what's going to be expected of me every time I enter a contest, because that's the level. And rather than thinking, you know, like, I mean, of course you thought, like, I was awesome because I won something in this category, but also, like, thinking there's a big expectation now, you know?
Yeah.
There's a larger body of work that's expected.
And being aware of that as you get into the higher categories, that, there's going to be more expected of you to compete in these categories. And so just doing the same thing that you've done before, like, you got to change things up. You've got to push those skills further. Because, like, I'd done a ton of, like, hand embroidery stuff on my beginner work, and it wasn't, like, it was spectacular enough for the beginner's category, but in intermediate, I had to bump that up more. So on the next piece that I did, I still did a bunch of hand embroidery, but I bumped it up a notch. Mm-hmm. I learned new stitches. I figured out better ways of putting things together. I did a little bit of quilting on it. Because I was Ordon Link was my intermediate piece. And even going from, I did Ordon Link, and I did Princess Agatha, who's the Bug Princess in Twilight Princess, the video game, if you don't know what that is. I'm assuming people listening to this know what that is. But just in case, like, I made that for my sister, and even then I bumped up all my hand embroidery stuff to even more stitches and more different things. I just made sure that I kept bringing it up another level, in my mind anyways. Yeah. And it helped me improve, and also showed that there was still so much more for me to learn. Definitely. And it was really fun. It was a ton of fun to do that. Yeah,
for sure. I think that's good. I love seeing people learn new skills for cosplay, but I also love seeing, like, I hate when people say, well, you just showed me skills you already have. It's like, no, I want to see how you have polished that skill. Because sometimes when you start a skill, it's not going to be a master level skill.
My stem stitch is awesome.
Nice.
I will say that one. It has gotten so much better since my intermediate days.
But yeah, like, not just showing us that you have new skills, but polishing the ones that you do have. Like, learning more about what goes behind each technique, being able to do that technique. Like if you're doing applique is a good technique to learn, but there are a bunch of... They're playing, like, table hockey while I'm trying to have this, like, conversation here.
Sorry. Melissa wasn't looking, and I was trying not to interrupt, so I threw a penlet at her.
Fight you in an alleyway.
She's gonna fight me in an alleyway now. I was telling you I love you.
So if you're going to fight someone in an alleyway, of course you can beat that person in the alleyway with just a few punches, but think of how much better it'll be when you refine your work and learn a solid right hook. Like, it's still a punch, but you're doing so much better and so much cleaner work.
I want to be knocked out instantly.
Yes. I want my jaw to be completely fractured. Anyway. Thank you, everyone, for your colorful commentary.
I love the analogy now.
Thank you.
Yes, refine your skills. It's more than just like, oh yeah, you've done hand embroidery before. No, it's like, I've improved the embroidery. Like, if you look on the back of it, it's not as messy as it used to be. Because my first attempt at what's called a stem stitch was awful, because I actually didn't know how to do one, and I ended up using twice the amount of thread that I needed to.
Oops.
And then after I found out that it was called a stem stitch, because I remember going up to the judges and being like, look at this stitch! I figured it out on my own. I don't know what it is, but, like, I think it's really cool. And they're like, oh, that's a stem stitch. And I went, dang it! It already exists!
Yeah.
And then I looked it up and found out, oh, I could use way less thread. And it actually made it so that later when I would use that same stitch, it was not as bulky underneath and itchy for, like, my skin and stuff. Well, like, I mean, I had a layer of fabric between me and the stitches, but, like, it's not as bulky and painful if you know how to do them right. And that's what I like to see. It's like, oh yeah, you've worked with leather before. What can you do to improve upon that? I want to see, you know, in the next step, what have you improved upon? Because, like, I know plenty of people who are leather people, foam armor people, you know, dress people. You guys are dress people. You're more than just dress people. I know. I'm just joking.
Pannon this conversation all the time. Yes. Like, people are like, "Oh, you just do dress." I'm like, I literally learned to do dresses 5 years ago. That's it. I've been cosplaying for almost 20 years. I started doing big dresses like 5 years ago. Like, but for some reason, that's what people are like. Trades. I'm a jackal. Oh, a jack of all trades. And I said I was a jackal, and I'm like, I guess.
You're a jackalin of all trades?
Ew.
Jackalope.
Jackalope. I will be a jackalope because he is made of all the things.
Hey!
Strive to be a jackalope. Yes. Be made of all the things.
Here's your outro.
I just need a minute. Is it though?
I mean, I guess not. I remember segments as a kid of funniest home videos where they would have the jackalope chasing.
Oh my gosh, I remember
and it brought me so much terror.
It's like this weird taxidermied rabbit with horns.
I was like, we're all gonna die. The jackalope's gonna find us and it's gonna murder me in my sleep.
I am gonna find you and murder you in your sleep with all of my trades that I have learned. Strive to be the jackalope. There we go, teaser trailer for this episode.
Oh my gosh.
So, intermediate advice.
Have fun editing this one.
Oh my gosh.
I can tell it's been a while. Like, I've saved up all of this stupidity for today. Lucky you.
Anywho.
So,
thanks, Pannon.
You're welcome.
Now I get these images out of my head of you being a jackalope.
I'm gonna be jackalope cosplay. Jackalope of all trades.
Okay. Intermediate.
Yeah, so we already covered a couple things, like your attitude, like what to try harder, do the thing but bigger.
Do the thing but bigger, yeah. And this kind of goes for masters as well. Don't be huge into your ego.
Yeah, I know, like, I feel like really, like, not humble saying this, but, like, I don't know firsthand what it was like to be an intermediate. And
I do.
Most of the things I've heard from friends has been that intermediate is the hardest category to be in. Because
it is tough.
It is so hard to push yourself out from the crowd and push yourself hard enough to get to masters.
Yeah. Because, like, intermediate is just...
Because, I mean, you're in a group of people who have already won at least a few awards. I guess, like, at least one award, or have been doing it for several years. But the experience levels are all very different. Whatever they specified in is still very different.
Yes.
And I feel like with intermediate, at least with judging, they have yet to, like, pull together those various skills into one cohesive costume. Yeah.
I was like, going from beginners to intermediate, for me, like, my big thing that I was getting good at anyways was all of the embroidery and assembling shirts and pants. Pants suck. Anyways, I still hate making them. But it's like being able to, like, make patterns and things and use patterns and whatnot. I was still getting a grasp on those things. And so, like, getting into intermediate, I was like, I gotta step this up if I want to keep going. And so I was like, well, what am I good at? I'm pretty decent at the embroidery stuff. I'll keep using that. But also, how can I expand upon that? Okay, there's quilting. I could get better at making pants and maybe get a better fitting pair than what I just made. What kind of materials have I been using? Well, I've been using really cheap Walmart materials. Maybe I can try and expand out of that as well.
Sure. Which is always scary, I think, because, like, the tools, you always want to go into tools. Like, tools are what help you do the thing better.
Yes.
And having, like, nicer tools is going to make it easier to make a nicer final product, but it is not a, like, free pass, like, fast pass to the front of the, like, being good line.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've seen people who have bought the expensive materials, bought expensive fabrics, and it hasn't...
used the fancy tools, and they didn't
and it
quite
still
deliver.
hasn't quite been utilized in a way to, like, show how nice that is. So I would say it's fine to, like, learn on the cheaper,
Yes.
the, like, easier to get materials, the stuff that, like, you're not gonna be sad if you cut out wrong sort of things.
Yeah.
Working with, like, foam because it's cheap and easy. Working with cottons because it's cheap and easy, you know?
Cosplay is a creation of the impossible with the cheaply available.
Yup. But as you grow, start, like, working in those new products, start working in things that, like, well, I can make this out of foam, but I'm going to see what adding in, like, different finishing products does. Like, doing, like, a gesso or something that I can sand and get a better shape.
And that's one thing going from beginners to intermediate and eventually to masters is that you gotta realize that you're probably gonna start spending a little bit more each time, that your budget from before is probably not going to... Your budget as a beginner is probably not gonna apply the same as a budget for a master. Especially if, like, you really want to push those skills and bring it to that level of craftsmanship. It means, yeah, you're probably going to have to start trying new things. And so, like, for me, going from intermediate to masters, I started using more leather. Like, I'd used a little bit beforehand.
It's not cheap.
Yeah, leather is not cheap. It's a very forgiving material, though. I highly, like, recommend it as a material for, like, learning how to use, especially, like, early on. It's very forgiving. But it, you know, that's what I used to try and take things to the master's level was, okay, how about I actually do real full-on leather armor, and even then I still didn't win, which was okay, because, I mean, I still got to learn a lot while I was there. And that's one thing, too, a good master, a good competitor, always knows that there's still more for them to learn. They don't go into a contest going, I know everything I need to know. Well, I know everything I need to know about this, but I also know that there's more I can learn afterwards.
Right.
Like, always have that kind of, like, attitude of
you're never going to know everything. There's always going to be a new thing you can learn, a new trade you can try, something to up your game and do better. There always is. This is an ever-changing world, ever-evolving skills. You're never going to know everything. It's just impossible.
Also, like, look at what your weaknesses are. So, let's say you're an armor crafter. Good one. Yeah. You're an armor crafter, you like to make armor, but you haven't dabbled in the sewing side of stuff, and you know that that's where you've kind of been docked on points before, so try and dabble in sewing, see if you can actually make something, and realize that, yeah, the first time that you do that, it's probably not going to be great, and that's okay.
Can I tell a funny story about this? So, for me, with my weaknesses, nothing motivates like spite.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
So this isn't cosplay per se, but it is in the arts. I like to draw in my spare time, and I had shown some of the drawings to my dad, and he is a very honest person, and looked at my drawings and was like, "You don't know how to draw hands. You're not very good at them." And I said, "Oh." And I kind of blinked for a few minutes and then went, "Oh, well," and without saying a word, filled like 3 sketchbooks with nothing but hands and dropped them at my father's room and just said, "Now I know how to draw them." So, I mean, it can be a huge motivator if someone is, or if you notice a weakness in yourself, or if someone else shouldn't point these things out to you, maybe, unless you ask. But if you notice a weakness, take that spiteful attitude and, like, be like, "Well, guess what? Now I know how to do it. Take that." Yeah,
I've actually had a couple things in cosplays.
A little spiteful there.
A little spiteful. A little spite in here.
But see, it's one thing when it's spite that, like, motivates you to make yourself better.
Yes, to make yourself better.
It's another thing if it's, like, spite that motivates you to drag someone else.
Person.
That's not okay. But if you're using that motivation to make yourself better, yeah, awesome.
Use it to help yourself get better. Don't use it to hurt or bring other people down. That is no good to anybody. It makes you look worse too.
Yup.
Yeah. Now I've done a couple of sort of spite things. So like my best friend Sadie, you guys have all heard from her on this podcast. She, especially as I was getting into this cosplay thing, she came in when I was competing in no, I was still a beginner, never mind, I was still a beginner. But anytime I would go and build something, she'd be like, you can't do that, there's no way, you're not gonna get that done in time, it's just, you're not gonna get it done in time. I'd be like, watch me. And I would, that is part of why...
Gryffindor,
I am a Gryffindor, yes. That is part of why, I would get so many cosplays done so quickly back in the beginning of my, cosplay career here. Because she would be like, you can't get that done in a week. And I'd be like, watch me. I'll get it done. You'll see.
The difference between a Gryffindor and a Slytherin. Yeah, we have the Gryffindor who's like, watch me, I can do it. And the Slytherin's like,
and the Slytherin
I am motivated by spite. And I am going to do this to spite you and drop my finished product in your face. So.
I was going to say, Sadie is a Slytherin, so she watches me do this. Although she also has been there when I, cry over my cosplays going, why do I do this to myself? Speaking of which, time. Budget your time beforehand. Don't do what I do. I've gotten so bad about budgeting my time.
Oops.
That I now get, legit anxiety.
Oh no!
Around cosplay contests, even when my costume is, okay. It was completely finished, except I needed to sew on some buttons and figure out how to attach the shirt part to the armor. This is for Sayaka. That's all I had to finish. And I was, laying down, getting ready to go to bed the night before the contest, and I was like, I've got, let's see, I can get about 6 hours of sleep, I can go do my panel in the morning, and then I can come back here, and I can finish sewing it. And I was like, I lay down, and the lights are out, and I, head hits the pillow kind of thing, and my eyes are just wide open, and my heart's, clenching, and I'm just like, oh my gosh! I can do this! It's like, all I have to do is put buttons on and attach the shirt. It's fine. Why am I panicking? And that's because I've stressed myself out in the past. You can do that to yourself. That is a thing.
Fine, I will do that same thing where I will just make lists in my head, and it seems like the most gigantic list ever until I sit and write it down. And, once I put it on paper and be like, oh, that's 3 things. Why was I freaking out about 3 things? This will take me half an hour. It's just putting it in perspective where you can process it.
Yes. So try and not do the whole to make a cosplay a week before the contest. Your heart will like you much better in the long run.
Yes. And as always, intermediates do the thing but bigger. That's.
And then when you get in the masters, do the thing but bigger. And with lights. No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to have lights in your cosplay. Oh my God. There was definitely a point where I was like, that's the only way to win.
I've had people, we have to have something that lights up to win. We have to have rhinestones to win. We have to have something that does a quick change to win. No, you don't. You just have to be the best you. You have to put forth something that is uniquely you.
I like that. Be the best you. Yes. My thing, I don't have lights in my cosplay. My thing is... I do armor and super hyper-realistic cosplay. So that's what I do, and I do it to the best that I can. And sometimes, maybe one of these days I'm gonna add I guess I had lights in Calhoun, but you don't have to have lights
in a costume. I did an entire set of 8 Vocaloids, making all of them light up with EL wire, and I burned myself out so badly I haven't done a light-up costume since then. So
it's be aware of what you're good at, and then go ahead and push those skills further, as well as learning something new every time. And most of all, have fun. Be the best you. I really like that, Pannon. Be the best you.
I don't think I can take credit. I probably heard it somewhere, but,
You know.
So is that good for intermediate?
I think it's good for intermediate, and a little bit on masters there. As for masters...
Be afraid.
Oh!
No.
Okay.
No. Or do. The jackalope is coming.
Oh my gosh.
You're in my territory now.
We're killing Melissa here. Oh my gosh.
advice for masters, like, it's hard. Like, masters, like, I'm not gonna, like, sugarcoat it. Masters is really hard.
It's a tough category. Everybody's really good at what they do in that category.
They are. And you have to kind of understand, like, everybody's putting their all into this costume. Everybody had sleepless nights. Everybody burned their fingers and stabbed them with needles. Like, everybody did this. So, like, you can't take it personally if you don't win. Like, I explain this to beginners. I explain it also to masters because I feel like there's this entitlement that I'm a master. I should win. I put all this into it. No, it's the same as beginners. Like, treat this like a beginner. Like, you don't expect to win as a beginner. You don't expect to win as a master. You don't know what you're going to be up against till you get there.
Exactly.
Like, it should not... like,
Pannon has feels on
don't
this.
let your ego get in the way.
Or
Like,
the jackalope will come
you
get
are
you.
still, the jackalope's gonna come get you. Don't let your ego get in the way of learning new things, of learning from these other masters, of making new friends, of seeing new ways that you can push yourself because other masters are going to learn things differently than you did. Maybe there's something on their costume that you absolutely love and want to know how to do. Like, don't be that guy who just sits on the edge of the room and won't, like, talk to anybody, but covets their skills. Like, talk to each other, learn things. And other masters, if someone comes up and asks you about how you did a thing, be nice and explain. Like, talk to them about it. Share your knowledge. Like, we don't need to keep this locked down in a vault. If they don't find it out from you, they're gonna find it out on the internet. Like, get over yourself. I'm sorry.
You're gonna find it out on the internet. I love it. I don't know, it's so fun talking to people in the green room.
It is.
And getting to know others, and it's not about sitting there and it's like, I'm the best at this. It's not about being the best. It's about being the best you.
Yep.
But not being better than everybody else in that room. It's about being part of everybody else in that room. Part of everybody who's coming to this convention. You know, it's getting out there and being a part of this community that loves to create things and recreate their favorite characters.
Like, if you have the time to go bullying other people, go talking crap about them, go picking all these other costumes apart, use that time to make yourself better. Like, if you're that sad you didn't win and you just waste all this time picking others apart, use that time to make yourself better. That is the way you're going to get better, not by tearing others down.
Yeah, it's like, don't sit there and tear other people down. Go out there and be like, hey, what can I do to get better at this? How can I outshine these kinds of people? And do that. Like, get better at your skill and then make friends with these people. I mean, that whole, like, keep your enemies closer thing. And no, I'm just kidding.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, Pannon, we're great friends.
Wow. Jackalope's coming for you, too.
Oh, no. Lock my doors.
We're going to use, like, a picture for this episode, and it's just going to be a jackalope, and people are going to have no idea.
I have to do a bunch of drawings today, so I'm going to draw a jackalope.
Do it. Do it.
Make sure it lights up.
Make sure it is. The eyes have to be, like, red devil eyes. It's coming for you.
It's a lit up jackalope.
But yeah, advice for masters, like, do the thing but bigger. Like, learn your trades, but learn how to do them as polished as possible. Like, a master is someone who knows their craft beyond reproach. Like, make sure that that is reflected in your costumes. But also, masters these days, I feel like, have so much more that they have to compete with. Like, you have to not just have one trade that you're really good at, you may have to have several, because every other master is going to be displaying several skills that are really well done.
Yes.
Like, if you come up and you are good at sewing, and your sewing is flawless, but you only have, like, 3 techniques that you're showing me, but they're done really well, I'm not going to be as impressed as someone who has done, 10 different techniques, and they're all done really well. Same
and
for,
that's
like...
the key there, is, like, you could have done 10 different techniques and then done them crappily, and you still are not going to score better than someone who did them well.
Yes.
Do them...
It goes both ways.
Well, that's the biggest thing with masters, is don't cut corners. Like, it is... I'm not gonna lie. It's the most stressful thing for me. I still go out there and I compete and whatnot, but, like, it is the most stressful thing in my life.
Yeah. Is
going and competing in the masters category, because if you cut corners, it will be noted. Masters, you can't cut corners. You can't be like, well, I'm just really good at this, so I'm just gonna, do it really quickly. No, pour your heart and love still into that. Don't just be like, oh, I'm really good at, let's say airbrushing, and so you airbrush something.
Yeah.
But, like, if you do it and you cut a corner and be like, they're not gonna notice this because I'm so good at it. No. Still try and take those steps because those things do get noticed.
Yep.
If you're like, they're not going to notice this seam, or they're not going to notice if this, piece of armor has a flaw in it, and it's okay if you, like, get to the end of building your cosplay and you're like, okay, there's flaws in it. All the Masters cosplays have flaws in them.
Yep.
But as long as you feel like you've put in the best that you can for it and you didn't cut corners because of ego, then I think you're going to be all right.
Yeah. One of the things I love to see is passion. Like, I want to see how much you loved creating this character. Like, when I get into...
This goes for all categories.
It really does.
Yeah.
Like, when I did my Gijinka for Raichu, I did for the ALA Masquerade a few years ago, and I ended up winning Best in Show for craftsmanship. And it was a fairly simple design. I had done traditional Japanese clothing, but I had pushed it as far as I could with the details. Like, I made sure that Raichu's Pokemon number was hidden throughout the costume. I had everything was in lightning bolt motifs that was hand sewn or hand cut. I had, like, the Thunder badge from the game embroidered on the back of my jacket. I had, like, the things lit up and flashed like lightning. Like, I tried to be as passionate as I could in creating this because I wanted it to really embody the spirit of that character. And I love seeing stuff like that in judging where someone's like, well, I really thought about, like, where this character comes from and this is how it would have been made. Or I really wanted to, like, show this piece of the character's past, so I included something that shows this or where it came from. Like, I love seeing that level of detail, that level of passion.
It takes it above more than just making it look screen accurate. Mm-hmm. It's making it your own as well as the characters. It's just adding that little bit of extra detail. Like, for when I remade my Wanderer cosplay, his sword, at that time, I now have to remake the whole thing because the remake of the game came out and the sword has details now. Mm-hmm. But before that, the sword did not have very many details that you could see easily in the game, or from its 3D model. And so I made up characteristics for it and even beat it up a little bit more than it is in the video game. Mm-hmm. And it added so much more character to it, and it's actually one of my most favorite props that I have ever made. I like it better than the actual design in the new remake. But that's fine. That's fine. I don't know why the sword is all metal in the remake. I think mine makes more sense, but fine. Like, even the hilt is all metal, and it's like, these people are primitive. How would they do that? Like, not that shiny or pristine or perfect. What? None. That's a whole nother podcast episode. Yeah, so do we want to move on to contest types?
Okay. Contest types. So, like, just as we've laid out, like, what's important as you move up through categories, knowing your contest is just as important. There's no two contests are going to be exactly the same, and that's okay, but be aware of what you're getting into. I know we mentioned this a little bit in the, like, 101 for Masquerade, but we're going to touch on, like, a few different types and what they specialize in.
So, like, here's a couple things that I look for in cosplay contest, because I usually enter in craftsmanship-based contests. There are other types out there, but I usually do... Well, let me list out some types first, and then I'll go over the things that I look for in a craftsmanship contest.
Okay.
So different types. You have your run-of-the-mill costume contest. Run-of-the-mill costume contest thing. These are ones usually held at stores to kind of promote an event or whatnot. I also kind of get them, it's a little bit of a derogatory term, but they're popularity contests.
Popularity contests, yep.
Those ones are awesome. Kids usually win them.
So audience favorites.
So audience favorites, audience favorite based contests.
Whenever they do contests that are like, judged by applause.
Yeah, my only advice for those is really play up your character, because it's going to definitely be performance based. Play up your character, play up who you're being. Yep. You're probably going to lose to a child. If you have children, take a child with you. There you go. Insta-win. Dress up your kid, you will win.
Yeah.
How can you boo a child? Come on.
No one's going to boo a child.
If you bring your child, you will win.
Yes. It's a takeaway. If it's a popularity contest, bring a kid. Everyone loves kids.
If not, you better be ready
Seriously,
for backflips and magic tricks.
No, it's like play up
dang.
play up your character. Like if it's
pick a popular character.
Pick a popular character.
If you enter that kind of a contest, you can't be upset if you picked something obscure and it didn't get a lot of notice, because it's
usually for those ones
it's a performance contest. It's based on what the audience is gonna like. And
I don't usually do a ton craftsmanship wise on that.
No,
it's just usually just for funsies. And then you've got masquerades or cosplay contests at conventions. Those ones tend to be craftsmanship and performance based. Mm-hmm. Depending on the contest you go to, there'll be one or the other involved in it. And there's also a lot of different types of that contest, how it's set up, how it's run, and whatnot.
Yeah, that's probably the most common.
Yeah. I can't think of any others outside of that, as far as generalized types, because Masquerade has a lot of different types that go inside of it.
Yeah.
So for craftsmanship-based contests, which most Masquerades are, the things that I look for are how much time do I have with the judges? Mm-hmm. Because if it's 5 minutes, I want to be able to plan for that. Some places do 2 minutes. That's a little too little. 5 minutes tends to be the general amount of time.
5 minutes is a pretty good amount of time. If your contest is trying to do 2 minutes or less, they're really cheating you out of giving you time to properly tell them about your costume. If you've spent 100 hours of work and they can't listen for more than 2 minutes, I think that's a little sad.
Yeah, and it's usually what I've seen with contests that do the 2 minute thing, which is not often. Mm-hmm. It's usually because they're trying to put in as many people as they can into the contest. Yeah. Those who cap their entries, so there's cosplay contests that cap their entries, they usually give them 5 minutes and 10 minutes for groups. That's the most common thing that I've found in most cosplay contests at this time. So 5 minutes for individual entries, 10 minutes for groups, usually. Yeah.
I mean, it will also, I will say, it also varies on skill level, because sometimes we do get beginners coming in and there's not, or even into intermediate and stuff, but there's not a lot to the costume, so you're not going to take the full time.
Don't feel pressured that you have to take that full time. Denver Comic Con gave me 10 minutes.
Wow.
I was shocked. Yeah.
Wow.
And that was for everybody in every category.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's a lot of time. That's a lot of time for beginners.
Yeah.
It's really not everybody can do that because of time constraints and whatnot. Because again, at Denver Comic Con I had to spend my Friday and Saturday
in the judging room.
It was literally 9 to 5.
Ooh.
Both those days in the judging room.
That's a lot.
And then Saturday with the contest, I had we had a couple breaks in there for food and things. And then I had a break at 5 o'clock and then had to be in the green room at 6. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it was giving your contestants and your judges the time that they need. So this is kind of advice for contest runners. Let your judges have 5 minutes with the contestants. Plan for that time. Mm-hmm. Most judges, when they come to judge your convention, know that they're going to be giving up their convention time to do this. Mm-hmm. So give them 5 minutes to talk with them, and then 5 minutes in between each entry. Give them time in between to actually talk to each other so the judges can collaborate on their notes and actually be able to discuss what they just saw versus just, I just saw a thing, okay, next one, let's go. I saw another thing, okay, let's go.
Well, and I feel like doing that kind of wastes, if you have a variety of judges who have specialties in different areas, it kind of wastes their expertise to not let them talk to other people on a panel, because they might notice something that a judge, one judge might be a specialty in armory, and one might be a specialty in mascots, and one might be a specialty in fabric manipulation, and if one of them notices something that the others don't catch, it could negatively or positively affect the person's score.
Yep. But so number one is look for how much time are you going to have with the judges, because then you can plan ahead for how you want to present your cosplay. And maybe as you're planning out your cosplay, you can be like, I really want to make sure that I focus on these things so that I can show off these skill sets as you're building your cosplay. Second thing I look for is, do they have, craftsmanship judging slot times? And sometimes when you sign up for a cosplay contest, I'm doing this all kind of backwards. First, you want to check when our entries due, because some cosplay contests are going to be capped entries, and if it's a very popular contest, it will fill up within minutes.
Yeah.
So you want to look at, when does the contest open, and
sign up right away.
Sign up right away, yes. Like, Denver Comic-Con fills up within minutes. 2 minutes was the year that I entered. They filled up in 2 minutes.
It does get harder the bigger a competition gets, because there's only so much time that they can feasibly have to have people on their stage. There's only so much time that they can have for judges to look at costumes. So sometimes a cap is the only option.
Yes.
And yeah, it does stink that, like, some people have to be cut before even being on stage. It does. It sucks. And it's hard because I don't know that
check and see if it has an elimination round. Some contests do that. Usually those are the bigger, more masters-based contests.
Yeah.
And the elimination round, see when they eliminate it. I tend to avoid any that eliminate at the convention.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's just too much stress. I don't want to go through the hassle of having to wear my competition piece at the convention only to find out that I've been eliminated.
Yeah, that's not fun.
Yeah, so I'd rather... I tend to avoid those ones, but that's up to you if you want to do those ones.
If I'm gonna drop the Benjamins to go to a con, I want to, like, at least know that I get to walk across their stage.
Yeah.
Like, let me know even if it's 2 weeks before so I can, like, know what I'm going to be spending my convention doing.
Yes. So look at what are the contest requirements as well. You're an intermediate, check and make sure that you match their requirements for intermediate. Some contests also don't use beginners, intermediate, or masters terms. They use novice, journeyman, and advanced. So understand what your terminology is too. Yeah, or veteran, yeah. Veteran, advanced, and masters are all the same thing. And so different contests may have different terminology. Or professional. Gosh, there's a lot of terms for the masters category.
Mastery and professional in some places are two separate categories.
Oh.
Just
so
depends.
Melissa just said that masters and professional sometimes are two different categories depending on where you go.
Just read the rules carefully so you know what category you're falling into.
Yeah, know if there's, sometimes they'll be like, okay, you've made it into the contest. You've got your confirmation email that you're in the cosplay contest, and they say, hey, there's going to be an email going out saying that there's going to be craftsmanship judging slots. The sooner you reply to that email, the better off you're going to get that judging slot that you request.
Yep.
Or they may have other instructions for how to sign up for a judging slot. Mm-hmm. Make sure you're aware of that and don't miss it, or be like me and have to get judged the day before the contest because I missed it and signed up for the last slot.
Oh.
It was wonderful. I had to wear my cosplay 2 days in a row.
And also, just note to conventions and such, please don't have more slots available to sign up for than you can feasibly judge.
Yes.
It's true, not everyone will want craftsmanship, but it really sucks to, not have a slot available, but you still are in the contest. I've had that on some.
Huh. Interesting.
They were just like, well, we have 40 entries, but we only have room to judge 20 of them.
Yeah.
It's like, well...
people who run contests don't do that.
Blah, blah, blah.
Don't do that if you promised your contestants that they're going to get craftsmanship judging, make sure you have craftsmanship judging available to all of them,
it's
whether they
take
take it or not.
Everyone's going to take, but make sure that it is available.
Now, for performance, so masquerades have the craftsmanship portion, and then they also have the performance portion. And performance is usually separate in most contests.
Yeah, I've been to contests where they're judged by a completely different panel.
Yes.
They have judges who are only there for craft, and they have judges who are only there for performance, and never do the two meet,
Yeah.
But...
Well, except at the end when they deliberate, hopefully.
A little. but often they're judged by the same group, but they are taken into consideration differently. I know with the one that I help out with here, they're judged on completely different score sheets, and that is one of the only times you will see awards, like, stack. So, like, it always kind of boggles my mind when I hear people complaining about award stacking when one of the awards was in craft and one was in performance, when they're two very separate
Look at the
things.
contest and see, do they have them as two separate things? Then that's okay for that stacking to happen. Like, I've won for craftsmanship and performance for my work in the past. That's because I worked really hard on the craftsmanship, and I worked really hard on doing the performance on stage.
Yeah.
And, yeah, the performance was really good.
Yeah. Well,
that doesn't happen for me very often.
Well, for like the Raichu, when I entered, that was one of the contests that keeps things completely separate. I won Best in Show for my craftsmanship for Raichu, but for the performance, I was Best Master. So it was like two separate awards, but, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, look at how they're judging, and then also look at how much time you're going to have on stage. For, like, advice for beginners on what to do on the stage. Like, we're gonna have an episode later on, like, stage performance and whatnot, but it's like, show off your cosplay. Try not to just shuffle on and off the stage. It's really easy to do that. It's very scary up there. And practice that before you go up.
Unless you have, like, a lot of stage experience, if you just throw yourself onto stage out of the blue, you're probably gonna sit there with your knees shaking. Like, even if it's just in your head going, okay, I'm going to step here and do this and step here and do that, it's one thing, but, like, to actually, like, move with your body and see how that works with your costume and make sure you're not going to trip over things and make sure your weapon's not gonna, like, fumble out of your, like, all kinds of things can go conceivably wrong, so it helps so much to, like, do it ahead of time so you don't have, like, it's not to say those things won't still happen.
Yeah, problems always happen.
You'll be aware of things that can happen.
You can prepare for things that you weren't expecting. Like, you know, one time when I was competing with my sister and she had on some Zelda armor, we forgot partway through the performance that if she raises her arm too high, she actually pops the magnets off of her shoulder pauldrons, and they go flying. And so luckily it was like at the very end of the performance that happened. It popped off, and I just quickly scooped it up and, you know, turned it into a hat. So, yep.
Very professional.
Yes, very professional.
Professional.
Yeah, so, you know, just kind of be ready for, you know, things that might happen, and, you know,
performance is, like, I feel like it's often overlooked, but it's one of the, like, hardest parts about the cosplay contest. Like, you, with your costume, you'll have many opportunities to wear it, you'll have many chances that you can look amazing in this costume, but with a performance, you only have those, like, 90 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever you have on stage, and then it's gone. So, preparing as best you can ahead of time for the thing that is just there and gone, like, that's really hard. Like, make sure that you feel as confident as you can. Make sure that you pre-plan. Make sure that you take every advantage you can to make that performance the best it can be.
Yes.
Welcome to our Bodice Ripper horror stories for today.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Alright.
That was my...
that?
What's my laugh?
We've got horror stories
It was
where it's
jackalope.
just more of...
The haunting laugh.
That's what you'll hear it by your bed in the night.
Pannon continues to assault our ears.
It's like that frog gif, the little...
My goodness.
Okay, tell us your...
Alright, so we've got
stories.
a horror story from Alex. She's from Angel Design and Cosplay. Alex is super sweet. If anyone's ever met her, she's super adorable. I love her to death. So she sent in a horror story called The Killer Frost Bodice. I can talk. Killer Frost Bodice. So, she says, as part of my primary cosplay group, I was Killer Frost, a DC comic villain, and I made this wonderful sleeveless, corseted top with a zipper in the side. The rest of my torso was painted blue, and I made it so that I could breathe in it while it was cinched tightly. So, it could be cinched up really, really tight, and she could still breathe. The person who cinched me up on the first day that I wore it gave me enough room to breathe, not realizing that it could be cinched tighter. In her defense, the other core sets in the group were all foundational, and the mechanisms for keeping the top up, they had mechanisms for keeping the top up.
Mm-hmm.
But hers did not have that, but it was meant to be pulled really, really tight.
Yeah.
This wasn't much of a problem. She was fine with like how tightly it had been done. Except partway through Comic-Con, their group leader, who was the Joker, had them all do a Taekwondo pattern. So her cosplay group does Taekwondo. They're really cool. So at this point, she's like, I'm rusty at the pattern. I'm just hoping I can keep up with the group without attracting too much attention. And we get into a sequence of overhanded blocks and punches, and then I feel it. The bodice is slipping down, and I can't tell how far. Melissa's face right now is like, oh no. So she says, I've got, a half an inch of paint down from the top of the bodice, and she's got, covering underneath as well, but she's very sensitive, because she's LDS and doesn't want to, like, show off too much.
If you're not local, LDS means Mormon.
Oh, yes, yeah. Latter-day Saint, Mormon. So she's very hypersensitive about how much she could be accidentally showing, even though she did have coverage underneath. And so she goes, so I'm trying to fix it in a way that it looks like part of the martial arts technique.
And then I realized to imagine, trying to, pull up the sides of your top
while doing martial arts. And then I realized I'm falling behind, and it's imperative that we stay together as a group for this pattern. So before I can even process everything that's going on with my costume, I'm focusing on the pattern so that the group as a whole doesn't look bad. She's like, the rest of the pattern was a blur, and for the rest of the day I was making sure the bodice wasn't coming down. She says, the next day I had my husband cinch me in so that I wouldn't have that problem again, and I also started practicing all my Taekwondo patterns more regularly so that this whole situation would never happen again. So, live and learn, I guess?
Mm-hmm.
So that's all from Alex. So funny that she brought that up about, a bodice starting to fall down and whatnot. So, my horror story... luckily didn't come true, but there was definitely a lot of anxiety beforehand. As I was, designing and building, my, armor and outfit for Sayaka from, Madoka Magica, I, was like, okay, I want to be able to build this so that I don't have any, straps or anything holding up the top bodice. I want to be able to tie it in and have it stay there. Mm-hmm. And so I built it, got it all put together, put it on, it stayed. I was like, this is great. This is not going to move or anything. And then I went to one of our dress rehearsals. And I was wearing a shirt underneath, but as we were practicing our fight skit on, for the stage and whatnot, I was like, this could be a possible problem. If I move a certain way, this could pop out. So I started practicing, moving, certain ways, and I was like, okay, we're good.
She's very animated telling this story.
Girls, I know, I'm moving around and doing
twisting
stuff.
Her entire body into a pretzel.
So the girls were staying in place. That was good. Okay, all right. I was like, all right, okay, that's fine. And then there's a part in the skit where Sayaka passes out, and Renegade, who is playing Kyoko, catches her and drags her off to the side. And that's when I was like, oh no. If she grabs me the way that she grabbed me the first time we practiced, I am definitely not staying inside of this thing.
Oh no.
So we figured out a way for her to grab onto me and then carry me over so that I wouldn't have that issue. But also, if you watch the skit from us on stage, as I pass out, you see my arms grab onto, I'm carefully holding my armor up to myself just in case. But trying to look like I'm passed out at the same time. And then also, as I was, getting laid down, I can't remember if this was during the dress rehearsal or if this was on stage itself, that I realized that the shortest part of Sayaka's stupid slanted skirt, her skirt's not flat at the bottom, it slants up, so it's shorter on one side. I realized that as I lay down on the ground, that the shortest part of the skirt is the side that is where I'm laying up. So I was like, this is wonderful. So I made sure to wear shorts underneath.
Good plan. Good plan.
Anyways, so that's my very short bodice horror story there.
Okay. So for mine, I'm actually going to talk about the worst judging experience I ever had ever.
Okay.
And to protect those who I'm not going to use any, like, modifiers so you know, like, who it was or what con or what I was wearing. But, it was an armored costume. It was one of, like, the first big armored builds I had done. I had, like, made a sword out of acrylic plastics. I had done this huge, like, foam build for the chest pieces. I had done, like, intricate extra props from the game. And the outfit itself was fairly simple, but I'd done, like, extra handwork to do, like, trims and add things and stuff so it looked nice even though it was simple. So I get to this convention and we go into the judging room, and instead of, like, having us sign up for judging times, they just said, okay, line up. We're just going to go through and judge you whatever, like, in the order you lined up.
Oh.
And they just had their judges right then, which, I mean, we knew we were going to get judged. We kind of assumed we would get to sign up for a time when we got there, but we still had all our stuff with us. So I am sitting here waiting, and our judge was almost half an hour late.
Advice to judges: please don't be late.
Please don't be late. Like, same advice we give to contestants. Like,
yes.
Please don't be late. So
Cosplayers
our judge was
are good at being
like
late.
almost half an hour late, and then I don't like having judging in the same room because it's kind of personal. Like, especially
in the same room as other contestants. You mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
It's a little bit personal. And if you're already nervous, it can add to your anxiety. The judge, I noticed as they were going through, like, these cosplayers are in the same master category as I was, but the judge was picking them apart, and they were the only master judge. And I saw two groups ahead of me leave in tears, despite having, like, really nice costumes. I had, like, judging is not the place to offer critique. It's not. But I was incredibly nervous when it became my turn. And I brought up all my pieces, and I had, like, the outfit on a hanger so I could show, like, all the seams, things like that. Mm-hmm. And then I had, like, all the armor, sword, different pieces that I could show off. And immediately the judge looked at my armor, swords, etc., and went, I don't judge armor, and just picked up my fabric.
Aww.
And I was so baffled and stunned by this that I didn't have words. I was like I had been cosplaying for, like, probably a decade at that point, and, like, I had never run into someone who acted like that.
That's why contests should have a panel of judges.
Yes. Yeah. Like, they just tossed aside, like, they literally picked up pieces I had worked on and threw them aside. Like, not dropped, not handled gently, like, tossed them aside as they looked through them.
Aww.
And then because the garment I made was fairly simple, they felt the need to, like, point out anything I had done wrong as I was doing it. And I left feeling, like, not just, like, not sad, but, like, super angry. Because, like, this is someone who's supposed to represent the master category. Like, they should be a master in not just one skill. Like, and the fact that they disregarded armor to the point where they would not even look at it.
This is where, like, again, watch your ego as you become a master.
Yeah. Is, like, saying that all that craftsmanship was worth nothing to them.
Yeah.
And I could see it in the way that they handled my things, in the way that they, like, were just like, well, that doesn't count because I don't judge that. Like, okay, find someone who does. But yeah, it was by far, like, the worst experience I had, and I feel like it left an impact on me of things not to do. So when I judge, I will make sure that I look at all the pieces, make sure that I am knowledgeable in as many areas as I can,
yes.
Make sure I'm on time, make sure I am not giving critiques while judging is happening. Like, that. So yeah, that's my horse. It's not a funny one. It's kind of, like, real.
A little real there.
A little bit real. Like, so when you're judging, like, strive to be the jackalope. Strive to be as knowledgeable in as many things as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
and
my story. So,
I think,
but that's also
I think
like
a lot of things for that fell on the contest runners
sure.
themselves.
But like,
because you should have a panel of judges. You shouldn't have just one.
Yes,
because no one person is going to have the skill sets for everything.
True.
As much as we try as cosplayers.
But yeah, but I want people to take away from that is to like, please speak out when you feel like a contest is mistreating you. Like,
Yes.
we say stuff like, don't whine if you lose, don't be upset if you don't win, like, but if a contest is legitimately just mistreating you, please say something.
Yes.
Like, if you don't, other people are going to attend that contest and think that that's okay, and think that that's the normal way for them to be treated, and, like, above all else, I want to avoid that, and, like, warn people that that is not a thing that should be happening. So, yeah. Get a little bit real here in our podcast.
All right. Well, if you guys have horror stories, we always love to hear them. So
Yes.
please send them
And
our way.
also, besides horror stories, we do want to do an episode coming up on, like, friendship in cosplay. So we want to hear about, like, legitimately share stories about how you guys met through cosplay, how cosplay has affected you, how you have made friends through cosplay. Like, tell stories about where you got to be where you are today because of cosplay.
You can email us your stories at cosplaystitchandseam@gmail.com.
Or you can hit us up on the website, cosplaystitchandseam.com, and just use our little, like, what is it? I just think
Contact
boxes.
form.
Contact form. There's like boxes on the internet. Use the box.
The contact form, Pannon.
Yeah,
the contact form.
that.
Yes. Or, like, if you join our Cosplay Stitch and Seam Facebook group.
Join the group.
I will
Join the group.
probably be putting up a post asking for submissions for that so that we can do a, like, cosplay is friendship is magic. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
Awesome fun
Friendship
things.
is magic.
Yeah.
Cosplay
Cosplay is magic.
Oh no.
Yeah, so go ahead and send in your submissions and we would love to hear from you, and maybe you'll hear your story here on the podcast.
Yay! Our editing today is by David Jeffress of Dungeons and Chill, and our music
By the amazing Macy Roberts.
awesome. Pun? You want to pun off?
No, pun off.
Pun
You're
off.
gonna win the pun off because I am not prepared. I have to prepare
Oh.
for my puns.
That's fair. You're not thready for them
I'm not
right now.
ready for them. No. Jeez.
Oh.
I'm
Well,
not
you know, in
pun
cosplay they always
prepared.
say life's a stitch and then you die. But I'd say that seems legit.
Oh my gosh. Pannon, you are
That was
a
pretty
beautiful
bad.
pun lord.
That was bad.
That's making me stitchy.
Oh.
Oh.
Good? Are you ready? Are you ready?
Thready. Oh my goodness. Pannon.
I have to warm up.
Oh my goodness. I need to
Okay.
start, like, looking up stuff, just having it written down and ready to be like, I've got a counter pun.
Oh, you're going to counter pun at me.
I got a
You're gonna
counter pun.
off.
She's thought of in advance.
Yes, in advance, because I'm really bad with coming up with them on the spot.
Oh,
Mhm.
Also, I lost my train of thought, never mind. Cut that out.
Also, ...
Mercedes went brain broken again. So great.
Oh. Now I know how to do it. Suck biggin. Maybe cut that. Now I know how to do it. Take that. Bye. 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 Wah, 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 wah. I couldn't think of a, like, sign-off tag, so it was just, wow, wow, let me make noises at this microphone.
You Waluigi now?
Woo! No. Yeah. Anything to add?
This is what you
Oh
quit
boy.
the podcast.
This is when I quit the podcast.
That's it, everybody. It's been a great 10 episodes. We made it this far.
We're done.